There we go. Kept me on the edge of my seat there. Song, what an intro. I love it. Casey, how are you?
I'm good, Jacob. How are I? Actually, before I ask you how you're doing, I am under the weather a little bit. So I just want to apologize to the chat at the current moment. I'm not feeling the greatest, so today's probably going to be a little bit a shorter show. But we're going to talk Bengals. We're going to talk a little bit about what's happened around the league. Um, Jacob, how are you doing? How was your weekend?
I'm great. I'm great. My weekend was great. I made the trip over to College Station for my beloved Crimson Tide, and we got the win. So that was a success. And then on the drive back, I got to watch 7 hours of commercial-free football, and that culminated with the Bengals taking down the Cardinals, which I know we're going to get into in a little bit. But an all-around great weekend, Casey. I know you said you're feeling under the weather, but did you have a good weekend as well?
Oh yeah, I mean when the Bengals win, it's a great weekend. Uh, you know, last episode we gave out some picks. I'm pretty sure every single one of them hit. So I was thinking about betting over the weekend. I would have probably been like a 60-70% winner there. I think we're a little bit off. Excuse me. We're on a little bit of a hot streak. So stay
I think
tuned.
so too.
Stay
And
tuned.
I got in the lab earlier today and looked at some props for Thursday night. So when we get to that game here in a little bit, I have a couple up my sleeve for you guys.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Let's jump right into the weekend review, the Mac and JT rundown. And you want to start things, or no, I should start things off because guess what? My guy, Desmond Ridder, oh baby, he just balled out. And Jacob, let me tell you, I didn't think he had it in him. I'll be honest, I didn't think he had it in him. I thought he was going to be a game manager pretty much this whole year. This makes me believe that he can be something, maybe a little more. I'm not expecting a whole lot more, but I'm not saying he's some top 10 quarterback or anything like that. Let me get that out of the way. But I do think that he can win. He can win them some ball games. He can win the NFC South for sure.
Look, Casey, I think you're right. I mean, we've talked about how great those weapons are in Atlanta for weeks now. And I came up here last week after Desmond Ridder really had a stinker across the pond in London, and I made fun of him. I said he can't do it with this roster. Well, he must have heard me because he had his first 300-yard passing game and looked absolutely unbelievable playing against C.J. Stroud and that Houston Texans team that's really showed some promise. And yet again, a team that we expected to be picking. I know they don't have their own pick, but a team we expected to be picking top 5 in the Houston Texans. They're really out there fighting every game, and that team shows some great young promise. But yeah, Sunday was all about Desmond Ridder in that ball game. I mean, what a game, truly a career game, and led a drive to win the game when it really mattered most, which is something that I certainly didn't think that he could do at the NFL level. So I was shocked.
Yeah, and CJ Stroud, didn't he break a record? Or he's
He
still on.
did break a record.
He's
It's
still
still going.
yeah. Yeah, it's still going. I don't know what the number
Absolutely.
is, but it was
It was in the
177.
170s. It was in the 170s when he passed it. I know Dak Prescott previously had the record and Tom Brady's third. Just a little tidbit there. When CJ passed Dak, I thought it was kind of funny that Dak started his career as a guy that built his name on not turning the ball over and making the smart play. We're going to talk about that game in a few points here, that Niners game, but boy, that's not the quarterback he is anymore. 3 picks this past weekend. But CJ Stroud, that's a perfect transition into a narrative that I want to put to bed right now, and that's Ohio State quarterbacks can't do it in the league. There's 2 of them right now, 3 if you count Joe Burrow, and boy, they are turning it around. CJ Stroud, most completions to start an NFL career without an interception. Justin Fields, his first 300-yard passing game, all of it essentially to DJ Moore. Just outstanding games from 2 of my favorite quarterbacks to ever watch in college football, 2 of my favorite quarterbacks outside of Cincinnati in the entire NFL. I just love to see these young guys doing well and killing a narrative that I know myself, I'm sure Mark Fetters, Sir Boy Wonder, the rest of the Ohio State fans in the chat are sick of hearing.
Yeah, I mean, CJ Stroud, I think, has really helped with that cause. I personally, I don't think you need Joe Burrow. I think what Justin Fields has done, what he's capable of doing, and then what CJ Stroud has already done is enough. I think that's enough. I think we can finally say that the Ohio State narrative, that quarterbacks just don't do well out of Ohio State, can be finally put to rest. And of course, that's still a little early, but CJ Stroud just broke a record. Let's just give that for what it is. I think Ohio State, they need good quarterback play to be successful. And I think that's very obvious right now if you just look at Kyle McCord. I know this is getting into a college football a little bit, but it doesn't matter if you got a bunch of receivers unless you got the guy throwing it to him. And CJ Stroud has nobody to throw to. Justin Fields, that coaching staff, abysmal, still balled out. I'm looking forward to seeing how he continues his progression of this year. Hopefully he can continue this pace, which would be unbelievable, by the way. It would be MVP type pace. But I'm hopeful for the Ohio State quarterbacks. I'm hopeful for those guys.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And in what's been such a big season for that narrative, we know we had these two guys front and center playing for their jobs in the national spotlight. It's been good to see them succeed. We all started our Sundays in London just like we did last week with the Jaguars yet again, but this time they shocked the world. They went over to London 2 straight weeks, came back with 2 wins. This one this Sunday, a convincing one over Buffalo. Casey, I'm sure you were just as surprised as I was the Jaguars pulling out this win. You think they've really found something down there in Jacksonville? Can this team turn it around and really start to contend after a rocky start to the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we talked about the secondary last week, when we previewed this game, I'm pretty sure we previewed this game. We talked about the secondary, how it was above and beyond what we had thought they would be. We thought that was the question of this team. Turns out this is probably one of the strengths of their team. I mean, they were able to limit what the Bills were able to do. I know the Bills didn't have a great day mainly because of injuries. They had a couple injuries that kind of derailed their defensive efforts. But that's not an excuse for what happened on offense. And I think, the Jags showed why they're a legit team. They were able to hold the Bills to 20 points. They were able to limit what Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs were able to do, and they got the win. So kudos to them. Kudos to that secondary. Very surprised. That was a very surprising win and a good win. A good win for the Bengals. If you want to get right down to it, we'll talk about my opinions on that later on the show. But good win overall for the Bengals and for the Jags.
The Bills seem to be in an up and down kind of mode right now where they can't quite string together 3-4 consecutive dominant weeks. So we're going to see if they can turn that around. But if not, things might get ugly in a very competitive AFC East. It was a very eventful weekend of football all across the NFL, a lot of great games, but it was marred by a lot of gruesome injuries, a lot of IR stints coming today. We have Justin Jefferson, Anthony Richardson, Devon Achane, and James Conner all hitting the IR. Massive fantasy relevance for all of those players. We have guys like Matt Milano seemingly breaking his leg, ending his season. Daniel Jones with a neck injury that might keep him out. Casey, this seems a little early in the year for the injury bug to be biting this many star players. It usually comes a couple weeks down the line.
Yeah, it. I think the biggest headlines for me are Justin Jefferson, Achane, AR, and Milano. That's a huge blow to the Bills. It is really early. It's week. We're going over week 5, and we're talking about 5 really really good players, some up and coming talent, a couple rookies. I mean, it's really unfortunate for them to be on IR this early on in the season where it could really derail. I don't know so much about Miami, but the rest of those guys I listed are big, important pieces for this team that, without Justin Jefferson, this Vikings team is definitely not as scary as we would think that they are. And you lose a quarterback or two, Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, and those are the leaders of your team. You've schemed around those guys. Now you got to figure out ways to win with your backup quarterback. That's always very hard to do. Achane, to me, I think Miami will be okay, but still a very big blow. And he was on record pace. I sent you the stats, I think, that Sunday afternoon or evening after they had wrapped up their game. And I don't have them right in front of me, but they were like wide receiver numbers. He averages per rush like 12 yards, which is just insane. It's insane.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And you love to see such a young kid that wasn't expected to produce so early in his career, getting it done right away, day one in the league. And an injury like this, a guy like Raheem Mostert's going to get those carries back. And in 4 or 5 weeks, when Achane's ready to come back, you wonder, will he have the same opportunities he had before? So you have to feel for these young guys that get banged up early in their careers. But in the case of Justin Jefferson, I'm really worried. A player of his caliber, with his contract situation, and an injury known to linger like the hamstring, I'm really worried that Justin Jefferson might shut this thing down before we even realize it. Because 4 weeks from now, we're talking about week 9. Then you're 2 weeks away from their bye week in week 13. You shut it down, then you're coming back in week 14. The Vikings, I'm sure neither of us think, are going to be competitive at that point, especially without a player the caliber of Justin Jefferson in the lineup. I think it's something to keep an eye on with Justin Jefferson potentially shutting it down for the rest of the year. And to go to the other quarterbacks involved here, Anthony Richardson getting hurt seems to be a reoccurring theme. He's only played 4 weeks of the 5 weeks to start his career. And 3 of those 4 weeks, he left the game or missed a couple plays here or there with injuries. Casey, he's going to have to figure this out if he wants to sustain a career in the NFL.
Yeah, what did I say to you? The Colts just seem like they've got a curse lingering over them for the last 10 years, ever since they cut legendary quarterback Peyton Manning right after surgery. Didn't even give him a chance. Maybe a curse. It could be a curse. Maybe people don't believe in that stuff. I certainly do. They got to figure it out. They got to be able to keep Anthony Richardson healthy long term in order to have a future there. They got to figure out something. And also, Lure Up points out, not to mention like Chubb and a couple other guys earlier on this season that just, they're done.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, it seems like it's been a big year for injuries already, which is just so devastating in a league that's built on star power.
Yeah. And let's jump right into the game that we were all watching at 1 p.m. on Sunday, the Ravens versus the Steelers. And Lamar asked for the receivers, asked for the weapons. They thought they got it to him with Odell and with Zay Flowers, which we had high praise for those guys early on in the season. But they did not come up big. They did not come up big this last week. 7, 8 incompletions, I believe. A couple drop touchdown passes. Lamar still is rated one of the highest efficient quarterbacks in the league, but that receiving core has got to get better. It's got to change. It's got to get better.
Yeah, it was absolutely abysmal on Sunday. You see a guy like Zay Flowers, who has been so promising with the ball in his hand to start his career. And then last week, he can't catch a ball to save his life. He's turning his hips before the ball even hits him in the hands. He's looking upfield. It's just straight up hitting him in the chest and falling to the ground. It's unbelievable to see that kind of regression in just a week. He did not have those problems earlier in the year. Rashad Bateman seems to just not be getting better. He's had these drop problems since he came into the league in 2021. Then you have a guy like Mark Andrews, who's supposed to be the security blanket for the team, dropping a wide open touchdown pass in the end zone. I'm really worried about this Ravens team, but man, Lamar Jackson looks comfortable in that system. He's throwing some great passes. I'm sure we've all seen the viral clip to Nelson Aguilar, just drops it perfectly in the bucket over his shoulder, and Aguilar just lets it fall straight to the ground. I have high praises for Lamar Jackson, but if they can't figure out the rest of this team and find a way to keep a running back healthy with him in that backfield, I don't know how long the Ravens can stay atop the AFC North and in the AFC contention in general.
Yeah, just a couple things before we move on from this topic that I just find really interesting at the current moment. 15 sacks, I'm pretty sure that is very high for Lamar this season. Not to mention that he is second in carries, only 9 behind the next closest running back on the team with 47. That's got to change too. They got to find ways to not give him, 200 plus carries in a season. That's ridiculous for a quarterback. He's got 4 touchdowns throwing, 4 touchdowns on the ground, but in total, I think it's 6 turnovers. I could be wrong on that, but it's 6 turnovers. So that's also got to change too. Ravens got to figure out something if they want to stay up top of the AFC North. Let's move on to the most unfair team in the league that I dubbed week 1 of the season.
We sat here on Wednesday night and we said we have a great game coming Sunday night. 2 marquee teams, and we just did not deliver. The Niners dominated from the opening kickoff. The Cowboys didn't have a chance. Casey, I'm at the point now when someone tells you who they are enough times, you just have to listen. And I think the Niners are telling us enough times that they're the best team in the league. And I think Dak and the Cowboys have shown us enough at this point that they're not ready to compete in big moments.
No. And literally, Jacob, as the lower third down there says, I was waiting all day for a Niners route. Like, waiting all day on Sunday night? No, waiting on a Niners route. This team is the best team in the league. It might be one of the best teams I've ever seen, personally. I think a lot of people doubt Brock Purdy, think that he's just a game manager. Look, he's one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL at the current moment. He has one of the best ratings in the NFL. He's not turned the ball over very much. I think he has 10 touchdowns throwing the ball, 1,200 yards passing. I mean, the dude, whatever you want to say about that team, he's getting the ball to his guys, and they're making plays and scoring for him. But he's not turning it over either. So however you want to put that, I think the 49ers all around, just unbelievable roster. Cowboys, they were frauds from the beginning. And I just knew back in my mind that they were going to stub their toe, that they weren't going to be super competitive in this one. They had a bit of a spat back and forth after the game saying, we'll just wait when we meet you back up in the playoffs, this, that, and the other. Listen, man, you guys lost to them twice. And this time in a very embarrassing fashion. I don't think there's any room for you to trash talk, per se.
Yeah, Micah Parsons just completely delusional. I mean, I don't understand how you can sit there at your podcast and talk like you didn't just lose a game by multiple scores. I mean, the Niners went out there and just absolutely dominated every facet of the game against the Cowboys. And then Micah Parsons wants to sit on his podcast and say things will go better next time. They don't want to see us again. I'm sure they do want to see you again. I'm sure you're the exact team they want to see, because you saw George Kittle wearing his T-shirt under his jersey with that star and, F Dallas all on his chest. Micah Parsons said that they just made it personal, but to me, and Deebo Samuel said it on the Kay Adams show earlier this morning, it's already been personal for the 49ers. This rivalry is entrenched in these two organizations from many, many years ago, and it seems like the Niners respect that, and the Niners take this seriously, and the Cowboys, maybe now they will, and maybe now things will start to go a little bit differently. But the Niners certainly have the upper hand in this rivalry right now, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. And to wrap up and to segue into Bengals talk, guess who's back? Back again. Shicey's back. Back again. Yeah, Joe Burrow's back, baby. I mean, he looked electric. He was moving all throughout the pocket, making all the throws. Jamar Chase eating the Cardinals secondary alive, beating double coverage, beating that shell safety coverage. I mean, it didn't matter what they were doing. Whenever Joe Burrow targeted Jamar Chase, Jamar had his way. Joe had their way. The Bengals are back.
Yeah, Casey, I couldn't have said it better myself. Joe Burrow did exactly what we wanted him to do. I know we all needed a Bengals win in Arizona, but if we needed anything else, it was encouraging signs from Joe Burrow. I think getting out of a game, just like we did against the Rams a couple weeks ago, is not what we were looking for. We wanted to see Joe take that next step in his recovery and really show us that he still has that Joe of old deep down there somewhere, and we're going to see it this year. And boy, did we on Sunday. He had a play I know Kyle Kasky liked a lot where he actually got sacked, but the way he was able to elude in the pocket before finally going down was one of the most encouraging signs that I've seen from him yet this year. I know this week we're facing a Seahawks team that had 11 sacks the last time they were on the field against the Giants. The Bengals, a 2.5-point favorite at home. Casey, do you think this offense is going to be able to hold up against a staunch Seahawks defense?
Those are my answers right there. Those are my answers right there, Jacob. Yes, I think they'll be okay. I think the Seattle defense, yes, they have a really good secondary. I still think they have an unproven pass rush. I know they had 10 sacks against the Giants, but they're the Giants. If the Giants give at least 5+ sacks to everybody at the current moment, none of those guys are healthy on the Giants squad, so I take it with a grain of salt. Pete Carroll's going to get his, right? He wants to punch you in the mouth. He's going to do that. He's going to put you down in the dirt and bury you. So for me, this Seattle team, it's a little frightening, but I'm not scared. When you have Joe Burrow and when you have the offensive line that we've had since the beginning of this season, it's night and day from last year, just to start things off. I mean, you look at the sack number, the pressure numbers, it's a whole totally different squad. I know it's taken a while for them to get into their groove, for this team to find itself, but I think they're back. And this is going to be a big test. I think I'm more concerned about the defense holding up against their offense, the run game that Seattle is able to have, the DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba combination there. I mean, it's going to put everyone to a test. I mean, they're going to have to find ways to limit the explosive plays on the run game, which Walker is plenty capable of doing. They're going to have to find ways to limit the production that DK and Tyler Lockett bring to the table. And they're going to have to find ways to sack Geno Smith. That's just what it boils down to. If you can get pressure on Geno Smith, which I hate saying that because he's my top 10 quarterback, he just doesn't play like a top 10 quarterback when you got pressure in your face. Now, he was one of the most pressured quarterbacks last year in the league, and he did pretty good. But in terms of this year, he's not been quite the same. He's had a bit of a better offensive line surrounding him this year than last year. But yeah, I think that's the key to this game is if you can get to him and sack Geno Smith, I think you're going to have a really good chance of beating the Seahawks team.
And Bengals defense pressure starts and ends with Trey Hendrickson. I think in Cincinnati, we have appreciated him and what he's been able to do since coming over here on a contract that was talked badly about around the league when it was signed and has turned out to be one of the elite steals of recent free agency cycles. Trey Hendrickson's absolutely an elite pass rusher, 2.5 sacks this last week, and at the top echelon of the league in almost every win rate in rush moves. Casey, I think it's about time that the rest of the country starts to recognize Trey Hendrickson in that top level of pass rusher. You just don't see him getting the same recognition on national shows like the Max Crosbys or, anyone in that second tier below the TJ Watts and the Myles Garretts. And I think that's exactly where he belongs. If you look at him and Crosby's stats, they're very similar over the last couple of years. And the defense we run just does not generate the same amount of pressure as the Raiders. I think it's really special what Trey Hendrickson has been able to do to sort of resurrect his career after one breakout season in New Orleans. He's really made himself into a household name in Cincinnati, and I think the rest of the country really needs to recognize that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, Jacob. I think the problem, one, is just they're the Bengals, and it takes a while for guys to get that national recognition. Two, he's the only one that's really getting any meaningful pressure when it matters. And when you look at teams like the Steelers, they just do so much better when they have a tandem together, and it's just, oh, there's more pressure. Like every other play, there's pressure. Unlike where the Bengals, it's every four plays. You know what I'm saying? It's just, I think because it's not as dominant as a pass rushing unit, it doesn't get focused on as much. So then Trey Hendrickson gets left out of the limelight. Very unfortunate for him, in my opinion. Like you said, he's in the top metrics for pass rush win rate, pressures, sacks. I mean, he's right there with the rest of those guys, and he's been really balling out this season. If you think about the last couple weeks where you had a strip sack taken away, had another sack taken away. I mean, this guy could be leading the league in sacks with, I think, 9 or 10 if you give him all the sacks that were wiped away by penalty. And, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But that just goes to show you how dominant he's been so far this season, that he could be leading the league in every category.
Absolutely. And just working our way back on the defense, we locked up both of our linebackers this offseason with Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson signing contracts for collectively just under $20 million to stay with the team long term. I love what these two guys have shown this year. I know the defense has struggled against the run through the first quarter of the year, and that struggle might be an understatement. We've been getting absolutely gashed. And that starts and ends with the leadership of the linebacker position. When you pay guys that money, you need them to step up. But look, Logan Wilson just dropped an interception this last week. Jermaine Pratt has one. I know it was on fourth down, but a great play to catch that ball. I love what these two give us in off-ball coverage, and it's just not something that you get from linebackers around the league. I think, much like I said with Hendrickson, we take these two for granted, what they're able to do off-ball. Logan Wilson leads linebackers in interceptions since he came into the league. I mean, what an unbelievable stat, just getting the ball back to your offense. From the linebacker position, you don't think of that kind of lockdown coverage. Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson at under $20 million for the foreseeable future is just an absolute steal for the Bengals, and I love what they do to shore up this defense.
Yeah, and I know many people that they look at the PFF grades and they go, wow, they're really having a down season. Yes and no. I think the way that they grade is weighted, and if you are really poor in run defense that day, but you just balled out in coverage, the weight is like 75% the run defense, 25% pass coverage, and people get this skewed perception of what actually happened in the game until you look into the actual, the film of the game. You realize that they're playing at a decent level, not as bad as people have been making it out to be. And, Pratt has an interception. Logan Wilson has 2 this season. I mean, they've made plays. They've made big plays. The run defense stuff, I said it on the show on Off the Bench today. They had 2 really big runs. One was a 45-yard run when they lost contain. It was a broken play. Cam Sample goes after Joshua Dobbs, thinks that it could be a potential quarterback read, just holding on to the ball. So he makes the commitment to the quarterback. The guy squirts out to the other side, runs for 45 yards. And then James Conner had a 35-yard run earlier on in the game. Could have been stopped earlier with just some sound tackling from the secondary. And you take those 2 plays away, and they have 70-something yards on the day with 20 rushes. So you do the math there. That sounds like a really good day on the ground to me in terms of run defense. I think it's slowly getting better. I do think it's truly getting better. I also think I saw today that Lou Anarumo pretty much came out and said that the philosophy changes that you've seen in the blitzing in terms of what's been going on there has not really been because they're trying something new. It's more because they're trying to spark a play so that they can get their offense back on the field. Now that the offense has kind of found their groove again, maybe we start seeing more of what we are traditionally normally seeing with our defense, which is just sound defense. And I'll be looking forward to seeing how they do against the Seattle Seahawks. I don't think in terms of guys that can beat you around the outside, someone that's a real burner. They don't have like that guy traditionally. They got like a DK Metcalf, but he's going to be running routes. You're not going to see a lot of jet sweeps. You're not going to see a lot of tosses, things of that nature. We'll see how they do this week. If they struggle this week against the run, I'll be concerned. But as of right now, I'm not
Yeah,
hitting the
look,
panic
I
button
think
yet.
the worries about the rush defense came from playing two elite run offenses to start the year. The Browns and the Ravens are just at the top of the league when it comes to running the ball. And I think they can move it on almost anyone. And the issues with the offense and the willingness, like you said, of Lou Anarumo to take some risks to try to get them more opportunities when Joe wasn't playing to the fullest of his abilities, that definitely came back to bite them a little bit. I think they're going to settle in now. We've seen in the past the Bengals play more base defense than almost any team in the entire league. Well, that has not been the case this year. We're blitzing a lot. And like Casey said, I think that is going to change in the next couple of weeks as we start to settle in. But keeping working back in the defense, I think it's important we talk about this secondary. Chidobe Awuzie missed the game last week. He did not practice today. I'm worried about what this secondary looks like without Chidobe Awuzie for an extended period of time. But boy, DJ Turner looks unbelievable. It seems like we have absolutely hit the ball out of the park on our second round cornerback picks the last 2 years. Cam Taylor-Britt and DJ Turner. Wow. Just two unbelievable picks, Big Ten guys that are just coming in and playing at a high level right away.
Yeah, I am a little nervous about the Awuzie. It seems like the Awuzie injury. It seems like maybe he re-aggravated it. I'm not. I know it was an ACL, but maybe it's just. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. Makes me a little nervous, but I do think DJ Turner has a lot of upside there, and I think he showed a lot of good things. He had a couple bad things, but a lot of good things last Sunday against the Cardinals. My main concern with the secondary, and I think a lot of people will point to this, is just the way that Nick Scott has been playing. He was benched for Jordan Battle halfway through this game, and Battle had his moments. He was up and down. There's a clip out there, I'm sure many of you can find, where it looks like he's just given up on a play for the touchdown. That was not a good look. But other than that play specifically, I think Jordan Battle had a really good time. That's my main concern. Can either Jordan Battle or Nick Scott be the safety that we need them to be, fill in that role where we need someone to come up and make a play when it's broken through, where they get past the second level, where they have opened up a hole. Pratt can't quite make the tackle. Can they fill in for us? It's
Yeah,
yet to.
I mean, and that's what Jesse Bates and Von Bell did. That's why losing both safeties, no one wanted to talk about it this summer. Everyone was so sure that the Bengals were in a better position than they were last year, and that just hasn't been the case to start this year. We've seen the issues on the defense with the two new safeties. Nick Scott, that name's been thrown in the chat more than anything I've seen so far today. He has looked just absolutely abysmal, and realistically, that's what we should have expected. He's playing basically at his career numbers. This is nothing new. Nick Scott is not a lockdown all-pro safety. He was just a stopping block where we found the next guy. Hopefully that guy is Jordan Battle, because on the other side, Dax Hill certainly looks like he is filling that role and being that guy. I still like Jordan Battle. I like what Jordan Battle gives us in the box as a tackler. I think he's a good tackler. He's certainly going to have some issues in coverage. I know a lot of people on Twitter, especially, were pointing out the touchdown to Marquise Brown. I want to point out the fact that Marquise Brown burns a lot of really good corners and safeties for touchdowns. So I think I would give the rookie a little bit of slack in his first meaningful minutes. I really like what Jordan Battle showed in college, a 3-year captain here at Alabama. I think he's a real leader and can be a crucial part of this defense down the stretch as this team just continues to get better week in and week out. But I didn't want to brush over the Bengals offense so quickly. I want to just go back and spend a little bit of time on that.
Yep.
2 weeks ago, Jamar Chase plays the offense with Joe Burrow's injury in Tennessee. Jamar Chase pulls out a decent game, but it just isn't what it's supposed to look like. It's not what we've grown accustomed to as Bengals fans. And after the game, we hear Jamar say that he's always open. Well, it turns out this week he was 15 catches for 192 yards, and he leads the league by quite a wide margin in wide open targets. It's a advanced measure where you have no defenders within a 3-yard radius of you. He has 40 of those. 40 of those. There's only one other player in the 30s, and that's Rams rookie Puka Nacua. Jamar Chase was exactly right when he said he was always open. It seems like he is. And Joe Burrow's added mobility we saw on Sunday proves that I think we're really going to see this offense open up, especially when T. Higgins is able to come back. I was really encouraged this weekend, and I really do think we're going to keep it up against Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase wasn't being single covered. I'm just letting everyone know in the chat. He was being double covered and beating double coverage. That is something that I think is huge. If he has learned the ability to take on double teams at that efficient of a level, we're going to be in for a very great season. I mean, I know we probably aren't targeting him what was, I think, 19 times last week. 19 times is insane. That's almost half of the passes, but maybe we do. I mean, if it's still working by the time we get
Why
through
not?
and get T. Higgins back, the sky's the limit. And let me tell you, T coming back, I mean, that just adds a whole nother level to this offense. And I know we've talked about that all the time as Bengals fans, that it adds a whole nother level to this offense. But with this newfound I'm always effing open ability that Jamar has, I mean, this is what we all dreamed of. A great offensive line to protect Joe Burrow, give him enough time. Jamar Chase just burning double coverage. T. Higgins to take the top off of defenses when it matters. Tyler Boyd to be sound on third down. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was truly great to see. This is the offense that in Cincinnati we were telling everyone for the first 4 weeks. This is not the Bengals. The Bengals are going to figure it out, and now they proved us right this last week. But Casey, there's still one glaring hole. The one glaring hole in the Cincinnati Bengals offense is that tight end position. And we knew that was going to be an issue coming into the season. We sat there during draft season saying to take the hometown kid, Michael Mayer, at 28, maybe draft Sam Laporta down there at 60, get the Georgia kid, Darnell Washington, throwing all these names around, and the Bengals just did nothing. They sat on their hands. They signed Irv Smith. They rocked with Drew Sample. And now we're here. Irv Smith's banged up. We're throwing the ball to a practice squad guy, Tanner Hudson, signed out of Tampa Bay, who shouldn't even be on an NFL roster if we're being realistic here.
Aw.
I can't believe that the Bengals did this with the tight end position. It feels like I'm talking about the Reds. We knew the pitching was going to be an issue coming into this year, and the Reds wouldn't put money into it. But the Bengals are supposed to compete. I don't know how we could sit at home all offseason knowing that our window is open. These guys aren't going to be here forever. And just sit on our hands at the tight end position and just say, we're good with the 3 wide receivers. We don't need to get better. I think it's absolutely unbelievable that that's the route this team chose to go. And it's honestly malpractice with the offense that we have currently.
Let me just do a little pushback. Not a lot, because they had opportunities in the draft to figure out the position. And I mean, time will tell about Miles Murphy. Right now, jury's out on Sam Laporta. He's a top 5 tight end. I was banging my fist on the table for 2 guys, DeJuan Jones and Sam Laporta. Those were my 1 and 2. Didn't care what order. Regardless, they try to get Foster Moreau. And Foster Moreau had a devastating Hodgkin's lymphoma diagnosis midway through contract negotiations. We have no idea if they were possibly going to re-sign him. And I mean, I
Foster Moreau is no different than Irv Smith, is no different than Drew Sample. It's the same move that's not committing to making the tight end position better. No one thinks Foster Moreau is anywhere close to Hayden Hurst. You're accepting a loss at a position when your window is as open as it's going to get, and I just can't be okay with that as a fan.
oh, I if that's I personally I think Foster Moreau might have been a little better than Irv Smith. Irv Smith has had some injury concerns. Irv Smith has barely been on the field, to be honest with you. That's part of the main issue I have with him right now is he's been hurt and he's been playing hurt. You can tell he's been playing hurt, and it looks bad, but they have no other choice. Um, we talked about this on Off the Bench. If you're not going to throw it to him, if he's not getting open, you might as well just have Drew Sample out there and just
Drew Sample needs to play. Irv Smith is creating no space. Irv Smith's doing nothing in the receiving game, and he can't block worth a damn. So let's just play Drew Sample and make the team better. Let's add an extra lineman. Heck, let's just play Jackson Carman at tackle. Let's just run 6 offensive linemen out there, throw to the 3 receivers, because that's what we said we were going to do this offseason when we didn't bring someone else in. We threw in the towel on the tight end position, so let's just play 6 linemen. Honestly, it might be better than what Irv Smith has given us. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but look, on the tight end of a team that I want to win a championship, he's just not getting it done for me. Casey, that seems like we've exhausted the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's talk about their opponent, the Seattle Seahawks. It's been a week off. They were on their bye last week, and the last time that we saw the Seahawks, they were absolutely dominating the Giants' offensive line. Casey, the Seahawks defense really scared me on paper when I looked at their numbers, but I just dove a little bit deeper. This pass rush was in the bottom third of the league going into that Giants game.
yeah.
11 sacks can really swing some numbers. The pressures that they got, the sacks they got, the tackles for loss in that game bolstered them to a top 5, 10 defense in most metrics. I don't think this defense is that level of good. It's a good defense of young, talented players, but it's not the top 5 defense that you're seeing in some metric. It's heavily outweighed by playing a very bad Giants team 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's why I was saying is the Giants just they're a joke. They're a joke, and I'm not gonna take the narrative that this is some great pass rushing team when the Giants literally give up like 5-6 sacks a game. I mean, they're literally turnstiles, quite literally turnstiles over there in New York. I feel bad, but this Seattle pass rush is young. They're trying to figure it out over there. It's going to eventually find its way somewhere between average and just slightly below average. I think the offensive line for the Bengals can neutralize that threat. But they have gotten significantly better in run defense. That is something that they have done a lot better in, I think. And, we've struggled currently to run the ball. I really think that the Bengals need to be able to run the ball in this game. They can't risk throwing the ball 45 times in a game against this secondary. You have it here, Woolen, Witherspoon. They're legit. Those 2 guys, a great duo at corner right now. I don't quite remember who's banged up. I think you have Adams, their safety.
Jamal Adams was
Jamal
cleared
Adams.
from concussion protocol this morning, so it's expected that he will play this weekend. I know the Seahawks had some other injuries in that secondary. That was the only news that I got on the defensive side of ball out of their practice earlier today.
Yeah, and then Quandre Diggs, he's a solid safety too. That secondary's borderline elite, if not underrated to being elite. With the addition to Witherspoon, it just shored up that second corner. Bobby Wagner's back, great captain of theirs. The defense, for me, it can be good. It can be good, don't get me wrong. But they also gave up 30-something points to the Lions. They also gave up 30-something points to the Rams. They are not some world-beating defense. And I think the Bengals should be able to have their way with them, in all honesty. They should be able to do what they want. Whether or not they get Jamar Chase involved again as much as they did, we'll see. Um, I think that the duo there with Witherspoon and Woolen will be a little tougher on the rest of the team to be able to handle, like Tyler Boyd and Yoshi and Trenton Irwin. I don't know if Trenton Irwin's going to have the same type of day that he had against the Cardinals, um, but I don't think they're unbeatable. Is what I'm getting at.
Defense certainly has holes, and it can certainly be beaten. And the offense is no different. Look, they have a great duo on the outside with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, a third receiver, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who just hasn't quite gotten going yet, but all of us in Ohio know what he can do with the ball in his hands. And that run game is nothing to scoff at. Kenneth Walker has gotten has wound together a really terrific season so far, 17 carries this last week, seemingly putting a stranglehold on that running back one position. 3 straight games with a touchdown for Kenneth Walker, all 5 of his touchdowns this year coming in the last 3 games. I'm really worried about Kenneth Walker dominating this defense. I know I just said I'm encouraged by our rush defense, but Kenneth Walker is a very good back, bordering on elite. And I'm really worried to see what this Seahawks team might be able to do on Sunday moving the ball on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the issue has just been contained. I don't I don't think DJ Reader has lost the step. I really don't. I think it's just been a lot of containment issues, a lot of mental mistakes. I think everyone is still physically able to do their job. It's just whether or not that they can do their job and just be mentally sound. If they can play mentally sound football, be gap uh sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here, but gap sound. If they can all play gap sound, I think that they are able to limit the run game. What I'm worried about is them turning it into a play action. I don't want them to overcommit, which they might try to overcommit to this run game. They've been gouged countless times. I don't want to see that happen because if they're able to get a play action game going, it's going to be really hard to stop DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett over the top.
Yeah, I certainly worry about our young and experienced back end against these receivers. And I know I've hated on Geno Smith in the past, but that's an experienced quarterback back there. If you let him just sit in the pocket and deal to these talented receivers and talented running backs, he's going to tear you apart. And like you said, as we started this game, absolutely crucial that we get pressure on Geno Smith. Otherwise, this offense is absolutely going to roll. I know we touched on Jamal Adams coming back earlier, but there's injuries on the Seahawks offensive line as well. But second-year tackle Charles Cross did practice today. So I think we're going to expect him back on Sunday, which is a huge boost to the Seattle Seahawks as he was one of the best tackles in the league as a rookie last year. Certainly not what you want to hear as a Bengals fan, but I'll take our best against their best any day of the week. Casey threw the picks up as we started the game. I'm sure nothing's changed as we've talked about it. I know I'm going to take the Bengals -2.5, get it into the bye week 3-3, and boy, we're back. If we get into the bye week 3-3, we're right back in it. The Ravens have dropped games they shouldn't have dropped. We've seen the Steelers offense, the Browns, who knows what's going on with Deshaun Watson. 3-3 at the bye week puts you right back in the thick of it in the AFC North, right back in the thick of it in the AFC. What more could you ask for after such a horrendous start? We could be right where we wanted to be with everything that we dreamed of in the offseason still right in front of us sitting at the bye week. So I'm excited. I'm excited. This last week was really good for my morale. I think we all needed to see what we saw against Arizona.
I have to agree with you on that one. Before we move on from this game, I saw that someone, when we were talking about the tight ends, asked who we could trade for. Jack Butler, I think you were the one that asked that question. The first thing, I don't know if you have any names off the top of your mind, but the first one I thought of immediately was TJ Hawkinson. And the direction that the Vikings are going in right now seems like they might be going for an all-out fire sale.
Hard no from me on TJ Hawkinson. That would be
What?
an $18 million tight end. He just signed a 4-year extension this past offseason. I have no interest in getting locked up financially with a high-end tight end.
Let me break it down for you because I went to look at his contract, which is actually very favorable for the Bengals, and they have potential out in 2026. Are you ready for this? All right. This year, he's only making $1 million for the Bengals. 1 million. Okay. Next year, 12 million. It's not terrible. It's not terrible. Next year is 13 million. And then they have their out. They have a potential out with him that they can cut bait and be fine. I I would sign up for that. I personally would sign up for that. You're getting an all
Yeah,
pro tight end, a top five tight end, a guy that can block, a guy that is going to provide another dynamic to this offense. I think that that is a very smart move, but hey, I don't know. Maybe you have a different thought after hearing those numbers. I
yeah,
mean,
I would push back heavily on that. When you said good numbers for the Bengals, 12 and 13 are well beyond what I would consider playable numbers for the Bengals at the tight end position, especially with T. Higgins up this offseason and
oh,
Jamar the offseason after that. The guy I want to talk about is Hayden Hurst. Look, he knows the system. He's not on that expensive of a deal. Carolina's an atrocious team. He's an immediate improvement at the tight end position. I think that'd be a great trade for us. I think that's the absolute most expensive I would go. I even think Hayden Hurst is a little bit too expensive to trade for. But yeah, that $4, $5, $6 million range is the absolute cap I would put on the tight end position, and that might even be a little bit too much. But I do like the idea of Hayden Hurst coming back to Cincinnati.
I just don't like that at all. Oh well, we both have different opinions on it. Maybe we can look at different tight ends later on down the line if it becomes a topic of conversation later on down the season.
Can
Someone
just
also
go ahead and axe that right now. There's no way the Bengals make any kind of trade for a tight end. That's just absolutely not in the
It's
cards.
hypotheticals. Come on.
If you've rooted for the Bengals for more than a matter of hours, you know they're not trading for a tight end in the middle of the season. So it's fun to
Let
talk
me
about and all, but there's just no way the Bengals make a meaningful trade in the season to help them right now.
let
It
me
just doesn't happen.
dream. Let me dream. Let me dream, Jacob. Gosh. Let's move on to our final game of the day. We've already been on here for an hour. We were trying to get out of here at 8:30. Oh well. Browns, or no, it's not Browns. It's Broncos versus Chiefs, and I accidentally forgot to take the things down again. Look at me, good producing.
Yeah, the Broncos head to Arrowhead on Thursday night to face the Chiefs, and the Chiefs 10.5 point favorites. These double digit spreads are seeming to become more and more common in the NFL as we figure out which teams are really separating themselves from the pack and which teams are falling off. The Broncos last week lost to the Jets, and this is just going to keep getting ugly for the Broncos. Chiefs have won 15 straight against the Broncos. That's just unbelievable for a divisional opponent. That's nearly 8 years of just sustained dominance against one opponent. And I can't believe it. Under Broncos offense, the first thing you have written here is let's die. And I think that's the perfect thing because last year all they were saying is let's ride and it looked worse. And this year it might look even worse than last year. We thought Sean Payton was going to be able to rejuvenate that whole offense. Well, a lot of people forget Nathaniel Hackett started out 2-3. Nathaniel Hackett started out 2-3.
Yeah.
Sean Payton does not have this Broncos team anywhere near where they were last year, and it looks really bad. You saw a spurt on the sideline, Russell Wilson yelling at Sean Payton. I think things are going to get really ugly in Denver. You talked about a potential fire sale in Minnesota. I think Denver is absolutely going to tear it all down, and we're going to see just how ugly it is on Thursday night when the Chiefs just dismantle this Broncos team.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it. It's not even going to be a competition. I know I said on off the bench earlier that the last couple times that they've played, it's been relatively close. Um, the numbers kind of lie. They kind of lie a little bit because Denver on both of those games last year, I think, scored last minute touchdowns or something like that to make it a little closer than what actually it was. At that point, Kansas was just kind of running the ball, draining time off the clock. But the last couple of years, they've been able to bottle up Travis Kelce. I wonder if they can manage to do something similar there's not a whole lot of receivers that they're able to rely on and trust on. And to me, the Denver defense has been one of the most disappointing units in all of football. I mean, they have guys in their secondary that are playing just like they're just not even playing to the level that we're expecting them to play. Um,
And that was
I'm
the lone bright spot for this team. Losses for the Broncos here, everyone said, you just score 14, 15 points, you're winning these games, you're making the playoffs. But this year, it couldn't be more different. It seems like Russ is figuring it out a little bit. I know he's a top 10 fantasy quarterback. Those numbers can be a little bit misleading, but he's playing better. He looks a little bit more like Russell Wilson, and the defense is just absolutely letting him down.
Yeah, it's it's really sad because it's like too little, too late. When they needed Russell to play good offense was last year, and this year they really need good defense, and it's just not happened. And I just double checked here myself. Last game that they played, Chiefs won 27-24. Broncos the game before that they played twice because they're divisional opponents, 34-28. The year before that it was 28-24. Like, divisional games are really hard to pick. All those would definitely Broncos would cover the spread on all those games for sure. It's 10.5 points. Yeah, I mean, for me, if the D line can just somehow or not the D line, just the defense in general, if they can miraculously turn things around, if they can just find a way to get back to where they were a year ago, which is really not like asking a whole lot in my opinion. It's not like they were a top 5 defense or top 10 defense. They're just barely above average, maybe average. If they could just find the happy medium, this Broncos offense is just, it's not as bad as everyone wants to make it out to be. I mean, Russell has played, like you said, pretty well despite the circumstances surrounding him. They've got plenty of weapons. I don't know, man. This almost feels like a trap. It feels like a trap game to pick the Chiefs at 10.5. But I'm still gonna pick it anyways because it's the Chiefs. I mean, the hook is damning. The 10.5 is damning. If it was 9.5, I might not have any problems taking the Chiefs. But because it's 10.5, it's a little tough.
The Broncos offense should be getting a boost. I know McLaughlin this last week did score a touchdown and played pretty well in the running back one role, but Javonte Williams should be back this week. I know he practiced today in a limited capacity, so he should be back this week for the Broncos offense. That's a huge boost. He's a great young running back that I really love out there in Denver. I think him and Samaje Perine, maybe the emergence of this McLaughlin kid can really make a difference in the backfield and take some of the pressure off of Russell Wilson and those receivers. Speaking of those receivers, Casey, there was a report today that came out of Denver that with how bad things look currently and the turmoil on the sideline and in the locker room, that Sean Payton and the Broncos might be open to trading Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, or potentially even both at the trade deadline. If they really mail this thing in and make Russell Wilson play quarterback with Kroger cashiers at wide receiver, it's going to be hard to watch this team late in the year, and you're going to know right on that October 21st deadline whether Sean Payton believes Russell Wilson is his quarterback or not. Because I think they might walk him out there with a whole bunch of scrubs on the rest of that offense and just throw him to the Wolves and then have a new quarterback come week 1 next year.
That would just be absolutely abysmal for the Broncos. I mean, it already has been abysmal for the Broncos. I guess it couldn't get much worse. At that point, you're just trying to salvage the situation. Man, what a trade. I mean, we could pretty much just grade the trade at this point. I mean, it's an F for the Broncos. I mean, they lost everything for the most part. Seattle's definitely turned it around. If you just look at the picks that they used and what the Broncos could have had in that spot, I mean, they would be in a really good spot right now. Unfortunately,
the Broncos traded all those. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The Broncos traded all those picks for Russell Wilson, but on top of that, they traded an elite young tight end in Noah Fant. And then 2 weeks ago, Geno Smith went down. We saw Drew Lock come in. Drew Lock looks like no scrub. He looked pretty good out there in the Seahawks for the drive and a half that he was out there. So they may have traded the best quarterback involved in the trade too. I don't know. That was a really bad one, and it set the franchise back for quite some time. Not to mention they turned around this summer and flipped another first-round pick for their head coach. I mean, the amount of faith they put in the current guys they have in the room to be talking about just 5 weeks into their first season together. You're talking about trading away your elite weapons. If you trade away Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, you are showing zero faith in Russell Wilson. Zero faith in Russell Wilson. Not only are you punting on this year, but in my opinion, you're punting on his whole contract. And it's time to tear it up and start over. And I don't know if he's even tradable. I don't know if there's anyone that's going to take a contract like that. I know the Walmart family owns the Broncos, so they might have some money in their pockets and can just, bite the bullet on that one. But Russ's contract hasn't even kicked in yet, and that's a big one. So we're going to see how that goes out in Denver. But defensively for the Broncos, or defensively for the Chiefs, Trent McDuffie, their rookie last year, has been the number one corner in all of football this year. Just an unbelievable stat for a guy out of Washington that fell down the first round and no one really believed in as an undersized player in the draft. I think he's going to just have a field day on the edge with these Denver receivers. I don't think there's any way Russ is going to be able to move the ball against this Kansas City secondary.
Yeah, I mean, the defense for the Chiefs has definitely gone up a level with the emergence. And people have been saying that Trent McDuffie actually emerged in the playoffs last year, which he did a decent job in the playoffs last year. But Trent McDuffie has just gone on another level. He was able to lock up Justin Jefferson. I mean, they have a formula that works in the NFL. They got a dominant pass rusher in Chris Jones, a dominant corner right now in Trent McDuffie. They're able to get pressure home when they need to, dial up blitzes when they need to. And, the one thing I will say about this team, it's ranked currently in like the top 10, top 5. If you look at the teams that they played and the circumstances that they were in, they really haven't played great teams, minus the Lions, and they lost to the Lions. They played the Jaguars with a banged-up offensive line. They were down 3 offensive linemen. They played the Jets. They've played the sorry, I lost my train of thought. They've played the Bears. They've played the Vikings. Those teams, though, to me, are just not. They're nothing to really hang your hat on. I think the Broncos also are nothing really to hang your hat on. So maybe this conversation just doesn't really matter at the current moment. But I don't expect this defense to continue at the rate that they are going at long term.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree, but like you just said there, the Broncos fit perfectly with those other unserious organizations the Chiefs have played so far. So I think they're just going to roll on here. Real quickly, we all know what the Chiefs offense is. It's Patrick Mahomes, it's Travis Kelce, and it's a whole lot of nobody else. But this year it seems like Travis Kelce's finally starting to slow down. He's at career lows in almost every statistical category, even the advanced metrics. And this last week, he faced his second lower body injury of the month. Is Travis Kelce finally slowing down? Are we finally starting to see a little bit of tread on those tires? Are they going to have to really invest in another weapon finally because he can't carry the load anymore?
I'd have to agree with you. I think he's ready to just settle down, honestly. He's ready to just swiftly get out of here and make his way to just some country town and, just sweep some girl off their feet and settle down. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think Travis, he's been hurt a lot, or he hasn't been hurt a lot. I think the age is starting to catch up with him now. 2 injuries in a row like this, lower body injuries. I don't know. Was he declared to play this week? Is he playing this week?
I saw he didn't practice on Monday. I had not heard about Tuesday or today when I last checked. I would be surprised if he played on a short week. I mean, they said it was a high ankle sprain, and those certainly leave you out for multiple weeks more often than not. And this is just a 4-day turnaround. So I certainly don't expect him to play.
Yeah, it says here that he's questionable at the current moment. So that's that could be a big blow if he's not able to go against the Broncos. Like I said, they looked very anemic without Travis Kelsey. It'll be an interesting one, something to watch at game time decision. I'm sure it's going to be something close to that. Um, Jacob, do you have any props for us tonight?
I do, and that is the perfect segue into it. Travis Kelsey, questionable on Thursday night. I don't expect him to play. Who's going to pick up that receiving slack? Well, my answer is Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice has been unbelievable to start this year. Rookie out of SMU, 30 yards in these last 3 games, 29 in the game before that. I'm going to take Rashee Rice to have 30 yards on Thursday night at minus 125 on the Betfred Sportsbook, and I absolutely love it. I want to sit here and I want to tell you guys that I'm 3-0 when giving you yardage props to take in the Thursday night game. 3-0 in yardage props on the Thursday night game. And here's another one. So 4-0 if you ride with me and Rashee tomorrow night.
I like that a lot. I'm telling you, we've been really hot on these. Specifically, you've been very hot. I was really hot this last week. Hit a big parlay, so that covers me for the other 4 weeks I was off. For me, I'm just looking here. I think now this is a gamble. This isn't some sort of metrics. This is more just a gut feeling. I'm going to go with the first touchdown score, which has really high odds. But when you think about where this team is going to be at for the Kansas City Chiefs, if Travis Kelsey does not play, I think you got to look at one of the running backs, McKinnon, Pacheco, one of those guys to get in the end zone. My pick is going to be Pacheco. We like to call him on the show, on Off the Bench, Pikachu. It's plus 400 right now. So that's where I'm going with this week. I'm looking for Pikachu to score the first touchdown in the game. If I'm not going with the touchdown for the first scoring touchdown, I'm going to go with Russell Wilson touchdowns with 2. That's plus
Wow.
165. I think he can
Big
get 2.
time.
I think he can get 2, but that's it. I think that's all they score.
Well, there's your picks from both Casey and I. And I know you said you liked mine. I think I like yours too. I think the Broncos are in this game late. I think they can't do that without Russell Wilson throwing a couple touchdown passes. I like that one for sure. Casey, I know you said you're going to take the Chiefs here, right? At minus 10.5.
Yeah.
I know my shtick here is saying 10.5 is a lot in an NFL game and then taking the Chiefs anyway. But Casey just ran through the scores the last couple of years for the Broncos and the Chiefs. And look, the Chiefs are definitely going to win this game. There's never going to be a point in this game where you're worried about the Broncos winning it. But I do think the Broncos cover the 10.5 point spread. I just do. I think in a divisional game, a 10-point spread is a little bit too much. And if that Broncos team last year could cover the spread, I think this Broncos team this year could probably cover the spread. I know that's a dissenting opinion you might not have expected there. It seems like the entire world is on the Chiefs, but that's when you bet the other side, right? You never listen to the public. The system never lies.
That's right. The system never lies.
There's your Mac and JT for today. I know show Casey's weather. I have quite a lot on my plate going on down here right now, so we had to get in and out of here. I know we ended up still going over an hour today, so I wanted to apologize to Casey for that. I know he needed to get a little medical attention, but thought it was a great show. Thank you to everyone for coming out and watching tonight, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll see you all next Wednesday. See you all.